listening to the Pharmacy Podcast Network.
Insulet has sponsored the Pharmacy Podcast Network. This podcast provides general information about health and related subjects. This information and any other content provided in this podcast or in any linked materials are not intended and should not be construed as medical advice, nor is the information a substitute for medical expertise or treatment. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something that you've heard in this podcast or read in any linked materials. The speaker is an Insulet Corporation employee. Opinions expressed in this program are those of the speaker and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of Insulet.
Welcome to the Omnipod podcast with healthcare providers in mind.
Pharmacy podcast listeners, welcome back to the Omnipod podcast. It's been so exciting to work with the Insulet Omnipod team to bring pharmacists knowledgeable, digestible conversations about Omnipod from the inside out. We had Dr. Snow talk with us that really kind of came at this from a clinical perspective. We had a user and a family member that was taking care of her entire family, which is just an amazing podcast if you haven't listened to episode 2. And we'll put some of that in our social media and show notes as well. But today we're going to continue to really unpack the value of the technology. And this person's kind of special to me because I used to work in pharmacy technology with the tech people, with the nerds that were actually writing the code. And I'm really excited to introduce Jason O'Connor, who's the Vice President of Product at Insulet Corporation, the makers of Omnipod. In his role, he really oversees the development and the innovation in the pipeline at Insulet, and understanding that he has a special story to share with our pharmacists today. Our audience is going to find this interview really engaging and insightful on the innovation of Omnipod. I want to welcome Jason O'Connor. Welcome to Omnipod's podcast. It's great to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me, Todd. Really excited to be here. And like you said, I'm certainly one of those self-proclaimed nerds. I'm really excited to be here to have a chance to talk about Omnipod 5 and Omnipod and really what it does for our users and the innovation at Insulet.
So the technology and the development of that technology, people at the center of it all, there's innovation that takes place in steps. As someone who worked in pharmacy software and that behind the scenes to make it as seamless as possible for the users. And in this case, it was a bunch of long-term care pharmacists and operators. But in the way of Omnipod expanding freedom to our patients, data analytics and gathering for our pharmacists, I want you to tell and share with the listeners a little bit about your role and your team at Insulet and how you're driving innovation for the Omnipod brand.
Yeah, my role really has evolved over the last 15 years at Insulet. I have an engineering background, but I've always had a real passion for the consumer and translating their needs into great product solutions. So my team really works to ensure that Insulet delivers the highest value to our customers with the products that we deliver. And we do that really by starting to really understand our customers, what their needs are. We want to know what they like about the product, but really, and more importantly, what they don't like. What are the challenges that they handle on a day-to-day basis so that we can best deliver those solutions to them. Our goal is to really help customers achieve the best health outcomes with the least amount of work for them and really the people that support them as well. And that really includes the patients themselves, their caregivers, all the way to healthcare professionals and pharmacists that support them. And we really aim to streamline that experience all the way from the beginning, getting the product through to support of the product. So end-to-end process.
I'm always interested to hear, I don't know, I took things apart when I was little. I remember taking apart a remote control car and I never could put it back together correctly. And I ended up breaking it, which my parents were pretty upset because it was expensive back in the day. But I'm always interested in hearing about the inception stories and the product development stories, a company's origin. Would you share with our pharmacist listeners the idea of how Omnipod was developed?
Absolutely. everything today that we really do at Insulet is centered around improving the lives of people with diabetes. And it really was the truth from the start. And it started back in 2000 with a man named John Brooks. And he had a 3-year-old son that was newly diagnosed with type 1. And he wanted to do everything he could to provide the best care possible. And he looked at everything that was out there, all the technology that was available. And the options really boiled down to multiple daily injections or a pump that was really expensive and complex to use and wear. And he said, there has to be a better way. And actually, while sitting on a plane ride from the West Coast to the East Coast, sitting with a friend, sketched out the concept of the Omnipod on the back of a napkin. And as soon as he got off the plane, they knew they had something really, really big here, and immediately called their patent attorney and said, we're doing this. And here we are today.
How many great ideas have been sketched on the back of a napkin? I can't tell you how many times in business I've heard that story, that I was on a flight or I was at a lounge or a bar or something, and I sketched it out on a napkin. That's amazing. I've listened to the team at Insulet. I've worked with several of your members and the communications team and compliance, and even shout out to Matt, your pharmacist. I just love the team because you think of the end user. Everyone on your team is always thinking of how are we making life simpler for our patients. And how are we also making life for our care providers, our physicians, and our pharmacists? And listening to that journey to taking Omnipod to market, let our listeners know what makes Omnipod technology different than other traditional insulin pumps.
Before the Omnipod, your options were really, like I said, multiple daily injections or a pump with tubing to manage. You have to take it off to shower or to swim. You pull it out in school or at work to give extra insulin. So with the Omnipod, it actually is really unique. It's the only truly wearable insulin pump out there. It's controlled remotely by your phone. We offer a dedicated remote control device. And the pod, as we call it, that's the disposable wearable pump. It's disposable. You wear it for 3 days, and then you would throw it out. It's about the size of a half a deck of cards. So it's fairly small, really can wear it wherever you want. It generally functions as a traditional pump, but with some major user experience improvements. So, like I said, no tubes to tangle. One thing that customers really love, especially for, say, a child, is the automatic cannula insertion. So no needles to see or dispose of. You don't have to chase your child down and insert the needle and hold them down while you're sticking them with the needle. It's waterproof, so you're not taking that on and off when you shower or where you go swimming. So it just generally takes a lot less work and less to think about. Another thing that people really comment a lot on and really seem to love is how discreet the product can be, because it is so small and wearable wherever you want. You can imagine sitting in a restaurant or a kid in school, for example, and it's lunchtime and you need to eat to take some insulin. And as a small child or a kid in school, the last thing you want to do is draw attention to yourself and, having to pull out a pump that has a bunch of tubing that's attached to it. Kids are going to ask you questions. So that's kind of the traditional experience. Now, fast forward to Omnipod, and all you do is take out your phone, right? And you give yourself the insulin that you need as a bolus calculator. It tells you, how many carbs you're eating, you've given it, and nobody has any idea whether you just sent a text or you gave yourself insulin. So I'd say one of our biggest differentiators of the core of Omnipod. And then you have our most recent major advancement, which is what we call Omnipod 5. And that's where you automate insulin. And at a really basic level, it's where we take a continuous glucose monitor that measures your glucose every 5 minutes, and you make that talk directly to our pod. And does it every 5 minutes, and there's a little algorithm on the pod, and it basically takes that glucose information, and if you're running high, we'll give you extra insulin. If you're running low, we'll slow insulin down or even pause it completely. So that really takes away a significant amount of work from a user to constantly be checking and adding insulin or worrying about taking carbs to counteract the fact that you're going low. And it really reduces that worry that hey, I get to stop my insulin because I'm going low or I have to eat. And it just, the system's doing that for you 288 times a day, right? Those are way more decisions that you can make on your own and to improve your outcomes. So it's really a game changer.
So the technology that you described, Jason, it's quite different than that traditional tubed insulin pumps, which could be embarrassing in multiple different situations. You described children even more sensitive to that and not drawing strange attention to themselves. Professionals, for example, really anyone. How do you feel the unique features such as a tubeless, it's waterproof, the impact to patient experience that really increases adoption? Can you tell us more about that?
Absolutely. Yeah, I had a pretty unique experience during our Omnipod 5 clinical trials where me and some of my team actually got to literally live with some of the patients in the trial, with living in an Airbnb, right, during our kind of session where we had to keep close eye on the new investigational device. And it was pretty impactful to really live with people and hear their day-to-day challenges that they have living with this disease. And getting to hear them and their thoughts of what they needed to do and what they think about on a day-to-day basis. They would talk me through mealtime. Hey, I have to take my existing pump out. I have to think about the number of carbohydrates. I have to check my blood glucose. I have to make 10 different decisions whether I'm going to go for a walk after. There's just talking me through all of the challenges that they had to think through. And then they gave me their experience after the trial and gave me the perspective of how different the Omnipod 5 and Omnipod system is for them. And the things that they really highlighted were, I just have less things that I need to think about on a day-to-day basis. I don't have to take out my pump. I don't have to worry about being in front of my coworkers and pulling out a pump that has tubing attached. I don't have to check my glucose as often because my continuous glucose monitor is going to tell me whether I need to take action or not. And I know that I have the Omnipod 5 algorithm working to add insulin or subtract insulin automatically. So that discreteness of the product for their disease, and then just the fact that they had less to think about really resonated the most with them.
So part of innovation, Jason, and I know you know this working with Insulet for so long, is that shift from that medical benefit side to the pharmacy benefit side. And that's where my heart lies, because pharmacists are my favorite providers, and how they really impact. They take that treatment command from the physician and they literally implement it. And we know that people are seeing their pharmacist 9 times to 1 times that they see their physician. So that means something to me as the podcast guru in pharmacy. And I want to know from your perspective, why does it matter to people with diabetes and to our pharmacy community listening today that there is a benefit of this being a pharmacy benefit and how it impacts patients?
Yeah, that was a really big step change for us to be able to have product into the pharmacy with all the benefits that you were talking about. And as I mentioned, our mantra at Insulet is to really simplify the experience from end to end. We have done amazing things on our products. And now with pharmacy benefit, we have simplified access as well. And due to the cost and complexity of traditional pumps, many users don't try insulin pump therapy. So Omnipod and pharmacy benefit together start to help break down that barrier to adopting new technology. So with DME and the medical benefit, there may be a big deductible, for example. And imagine the worst case scenario where your doctor prescribes, traditional pump. You may need to lay out up to a few $1,000s out of pocket. What if you don't like it? This can really deter both, a patient, a physician from, even going on to pump therapy in the first place. So with Omnipod, it's really now put us into a pay-as-you-go model. So you fill the prescription and it's just a copay. right? And there's a lot less risk to trying something new. Ultimately, it's taking away barriers for providers and patients to adopt technology that can really improve their health. And the pharmacy benefit, you have a trusted healthcare professional by your side along the way. So it's really nice to be able to have a convenient way of picking up your pods and your insulin at the same place as you have your trusted relationship with your local pharmacist, right? But like you mentioned, innovation comes in many forms. And innovation really, the pharmacy channel is innovation, right? It's about how patients access the technology, and pharmacists are at the center of that and can play a big role in technology adoption.
You're speaking my language, Jason. I love hearing it. And hearing it from a techie, nerdy guy like you. That means even more. That's the people I used to work for, so I know exactly what that's about. I'm thinking about the tremendous responsibility of innovation in of itself to pharmacists. If you're listening right now, communicating this freedom to your patients and understanding the stresses that they go through, not only as patients themselves, but care providers, and the responsibility that the care provider has for their children, for their spouse, for their friends and the family. So when I'm considering that tremendous innovation that's already in the diabetes market, I'm thinking, Jason, what do you hear from people with diabetes regarding what they're looking for in future insulin pump technology? This almost sets the stage for you to stay ahead of this. What are you hearing from in the market?
We're really hearing a lot. This is one thing that I think is very unique for us, and the diabetes space. We've already delivered some life-changing technology, but there's actually so much more we can do. As I mentioned, we do a lot of talking to every person that has touch points with the product. As you mentioned, right? That's the person using the product. That could be a caregiver. It could be the physician that you're meeting with periodically, your primary care physician. It could be the pharmacist. There's so many different touch points, and we talk to all of those people to really understand what they want. And we do that actively as we develop a product. And during that process, we get to hear a lot about what they want in the future. And even though, like I said, we've delivered a lot of great major step change innovation lately, we've got a lot left. We've got a lot left that we can deliver. Some of the top things I think we hear right now are iOS phone control. So right now you can control the pod using an Android phone. So a lot of people are asking for iOS, which we're actively working on. They want Omnipod 5 integrated with Abbott sensors. Right now it's integrated with the Dexcom G6 product, and they want it to be working with the Libre sensors, and we're actively working on that as well. We also hear that they want to be more empowered, and there's lots of data being collected by the device, and there's a lot of data along with diabetes, and they really like that data provided back to them in a way that they can make educated decisions for themselves. So that's another thing that we hear a lot about. So they want the system to do as much work as it can for them, but they're still part of this. And they want to feel empowered that they can make some decisions and understand what their data is telling them.
It's almost as if you're demystifying this entire process. You're bringing in our team lead, the physician, that kind of gets the diagnosis and moves it forward. Now the pharmacist, the diabetes educator, the diabetes specialist, the care providers, the other individual that's part of this ecosystem is the payer, because they want to know that the money that they're putting out for that benefit is in fact working. And the feedback that you're getting from the user, the end patient, or a family member that's helping their child or their patient, that is the best information that you're getting back as a designer of innovation of continuous glucose monitoring. So what's else is on the horizon for you to kind of highlight? How do we continue to simplify and make diabetes a smaller part of someone's life?
I really like how you said, demystifying all of that. I think the biggest thing that we hear that we can do to improve people's lives living with diabetes. They're asking for better outcomes with less work. To simplify it, it's really better outcomes with less work. So I want to feel better. I want to have better time in range, and I don't want to do as much work to do it. And I think the major innovations to come are really going to be around that. It's going to continue to improve algorithms to get better glucose time in range. And it's going to simplify the interfaces and really reduce how much work people need to do. Most app developers out there, they like to try to keep you in the app. They want you coming back to that app every day. And that's their success metric. My success metric is if you don't have to open that app at all, right? I want you to try to have to forget about it. People want to forget about diabetes, and that's really, really our goal. So I think those are some of the things that we're going to continue to strive towards.
Jason, this has been tremendous. I want to thank you. I know how busy you are. You're Vice President of Product for Insulet Corporation. A shout out to you and your team. Shout out to our pharmacists, my favorite providers. If you want to team up with the Insulet team in Omnipod, please go to omnipod.com. There will be a link in our show notes to getting you more information around this. If you are a person living with diabetes and you'd like to learn more about Omnipod, please reach out to your pharmacist, reach out to your physician, reach out to the Omnipod team. Once again, omnipod.com. And with that, we're wrapping up today's show. Thank you so much, Jason.
Thank you so much, Todd.